So when I was growing up, I had a mantra that I used to protect myself, and it was admit nothing, deny everything. And it wasn't how I lived every moment of the day, but a lot of the moments of my days. It was kind of my attitude, protected, selective about the truth that I told to others and to myself. And I kind of noticed this was, something when I was around 12 or 13, and admit nothing, deny everything. And it was kind of a protective strategy for me. It protected me from my parents' scrutiny and control. It protected me as a gay kid in a homophobic culture. It protected me from being revealed, from being seen as I was. And at that time, it was really the only way that I knew how to be. The idea of being who I was in a way that was clear, plain, in my case, out, authentic. That wasn't something that seemed even remotely possible to me. And I wasn't alone in that. I was surrounded by unspoken and hidden truths, family secrets and dysfunction, substance abuse, depression. And I was born into a culture that knew all about the roles that people were supposed to fill and pretend were truth, but that didn't really support the telling of truth or being authentic when it wasn't comfortable or it wasn't normal. And so this isn't meant to be like a public therapy session for myself. But the memory came up because I've been reflecting on this aspect of truthfulness in my own practice, my own life, and in our culture. And the quality of truth and of being truthful is essential to the Buddha's path of freedom. So the word that was used in the Buddha's language, or the language of his teachings, was satcha, S-A-C-C-A, satcha. And it has the sense of realness. And the biggest problem with my mantra was not just that I didn't allow others to see me out of fear, shame, and vulnerability, but that I also wouldn't look at myself fully for the same reasons. I wasn't truthful I wasn't truthful to myself. I couldn't be. I didn't have the tools or the support. And there's no judgment at all in saying that. When people talk about truth and truthfulness, sometimes there's that capital T, and then righteousness makes a visit. That truthfulness in the Buddhist teaching is really about living in alignment with what is real, to see as clearly as we can in this moment, wherever we are on our path, and to suffer less and cause less suffering through our actions and how we relate. So I want to explore this quality of satcha, truthfulness. And as we'll see, and what I think is the most important thing about it is that it doesn't manifest in our experience as static, as fixed, but it's rather a practice, an inclining toward truth, toward realness. Our personal truth, the truth of the Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, truthfulness as part of the Buddha's path and teaching. What does it mean to live truthfully today? What does it mean for us individually and together? And instead of my old mantra of admit nothing, deny everything, what happens when I approach life with the intention and the courage to admit everything and deny nothing that is present, that is real in my experience? So satcha is one of the parami. And these are the 10 qualities of heart and mind that it's said that the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, to be practiced over countless lifetimes until these qualities were unshakably realized in him. They were full and deep, and they led to Buddhahood. And so their generosity, virtue, meaning our ethical integrity, um, renunciation, letting go, wisdom, the knowledge and truth that's gained in our hearts through our practice, energy that keeps us coming back, patience that allows us to be with the ups and downs of our practice, truthfulness, which we're going to talk about today, resolve, loving kindness, equanimity. So Gil Fronsdal writes about this: without commitment to truth, there is no Buddhist path. Dharma is a synonym for truth, and Dharma practice is synonymous with living a life of truth. In Buddhist mythology, and he's talking about the Jataka tales, these tales of the Buddha's previous lives where he was perfecting these qualities, it's said that in his many lifetimes of training, the Buddha to be never lied. While there are stories in which he transgressed other ethical precepts, his dedication to truthfulness was unwavering. So the beginning and really the ending, the ultimate of the spiritual path coincides with telling ourselves the truth about life. And the purpose of meditation and practice is to see and know things as they really are, to quiet the mind and heart enough to look deeply, to see what is true. And through that knowing, become progressively freer. And that's the insight, in our group title, Insight Community of the Desert. Wisdom that's supported by a long, loving look at what's real. Being truthful about life means that we stop pretending. It also means that we stop for a moment our arguments with the way things are and open to what is actually here. So Thanissaru Bhikkhu says this: it's interesting that of all the parami, the virtues, the Buddha makes truth the most important. Truth is not just a quality of accurate statements, it's also a quality of the mind. In fact, if you want to find the truth, you have to develop this quality of truthfulness, the willingness to look at what's there, admit what's there, so you can work with it. And maybe we see in this that fundamental attitude is not about judgment, evaluation, blaming, shaming, but actually about working with, seeing as clearly as possible the moment that we're in. And so this practice of truthfulness is an inclination, a movement towards, a commitment to remember, something to deepen and know over time. Trusting that facing in the direction of truth will lead us where we want to go. So there's a story of the Buddha teaching his young son Rahula, and Rahula had become a monk. And in the story, Rahula saw the Buddha approaching in the distance. And so Rahula spread out a seat for him and placed water in a bowl so that the Buddha could wash his feet when he got there. And so the Buddha got there and sat on the seat that Rahula had spread out, and he washed his feet. And then the Buddha, leaving a little water in the pot, said to Rahula, Rahula, do you see the little bit of water left in the pot? And Rahula said, yes. That's how little of a monk's spiritual practice that is left in those who are not ashamed to tell a lie. Then the Buddha, tossing away what little water was left in the pot, said to Rahula, do you see this little bit of water that was tossed away? Yep, see it. That's how the monk's spiritual practice is tossed away in those who are not ashamed to tell a deliberate lie. And then the Buddha held up the water dipper and asked, do you see how empty and hollow this water dipper is? Yep, see it. Rahula, whatever there is of a contemplative in anyone who feels no shame at telling a deliberate lie, it is empty and hollow just like that. And he gives a few more metaphors. And then he says, in the same way, when someone is not ashamed to tell a deliberate lie, there is no bad deed that they would not do. So you should train like this. I will not tell a lie, even for a joke. There's a very clear commitment to the truth and speaking the truth and a strong intention not to deliberately lie or deceive. That again, this is a training. We don't lose our spiritual power by being mistaken or in the process of learning. Not at all. That's actually how we grow. We aren't expected. We can't get it all right. It's about intention, commitment, what we value. So, as a practice, we can ask ourselves, where am I out of alignment? Yeah. And we might ask also, where is this culture out of alignment? And what does that cost all of us? So we can see this essential quality of sacha seeming to be less and less valued in dominant culture. We can see it vanishing from public discourse, from our leaders, from lawmakers, from those who take oaths to speak truth. And that really, that loss and living in the midst of that loss is my inspiration for wanting to lift up this quality of sacha right now, aligning ourselves with what is real, even when it's difficult. And politicians and business leaders and partisans, I don't know. I'm not sure that they have suddenly become far less truthful than they ever were. But what feels so new and raw and troubling is that the value of truthfulness is no longer shared as a universal good or aspiration, even though it's our foundation of trust. The Buddha warned us, when someone is not ashamed to tell a deliberate lie, there is no bad deed they would not do. So there's this devaluing of truthfulness happening, and it's happening right in front of us. I spend a lot of days, and maybe you do too, just sort of blown away, slack-jawed and disbelieving. Up is down, left is right, hate is love, terror is strength. And sometimes, I don't know what else to do but laugh at the absurdity of it. And other times I'm mourning the effects of it. And then I wait for tomorrow and the next assault on truth. It's come to be like Humpty Dumpty and Through the Looking Glass. When I use a word, it means just what I choose it to mean. Garry Kasparov, Russian freedom activist, said the point of disinformation isn't to manipulate the truth, it's to exhaust your critical thinking, to get us to give up on the truth, the foundation of trust. So more than ever, we're called to be truth tellers, truth seekers, truth lovers. And as people on a spiritual path, we cannot let what we're witnessing overwhelm or exhaust our own commitment to truthfulness. Instead, we have to find ways to remember and communities to remember with, to practice and strengthen that commitment. So there's that famous line, it's not really said in the same sense, but it was going through my mind, that Jack Nicholson line, you can't handle the truth. But we can. And that's what the Buddha's teaching is all about. We can handle the truth. We can expand our tolerance for the truth. A lot of truth is very difficult. And this is part of why the Buddha said that the whole of the spiritual life is associating with wise friends and companions. In other words, holding the truth together, reminding ourselves of that commitment, inspiring each other to value that good, that enduring, that true. The lies that we tell ourselves and that our culture tells us, these are the roots of suffering. The lie that there isn't enough for everyone, so people hoard and compete and close their hearts. But the truth is that generosity connects and liberates us. The lie that the earth is here to be owned and used and cut up and exploited, So people plunder it instead of protecting it. The truth is that it belongs to all beings and it belongs to itself. The lie that some lives matter more than others. So people justify exclusion, cruelty, and fear of others based on identities like sex and gender and race and origin and immigration status and education. And we know the truth is that every being is worthy of safety, dignity, freedom, without exception. And the lie that we are what we consume or own or achieve or how we appear. So we create identities that can never contain or describe us. And the truth is, we aren't the masks we wear or the masks that other people see. We're not fixed or limited. We are capable of liberation, of freedom. The Buddha didn't just teach us to avoid lying. He taught us to pierce delusion, to live in alignment with truth, with satya, dismantling these lies from the inside out, beginning with our own hearts. So when I was that 12-year-old boy, it wasn't that I didn't want to be open. It wasn't that I wanted to conceal or hide who I was. The fact is that I was vulnerable. I was liable to be hurt, and I knew that well. I didn't have the courage or support or allies I needed to be myself. And my actions were aligning in a culture of untruthfulness, of repression, of denial. And when I reflect on it, it was really the community of gay and queer people who had the strength to take a stand for themselves, even though they weren't my neighbors, even though I didn't really know any of them personally. I saw them on TV or read about them in newspapers. To live their truth, to be visible, that was where I drew my strength. And in doing that, they also took a stand for me in taking their own stand, whatever our identities are, whatever it is that we need support to be in our truth, it's others taking that stand that support us so that we can live in alignment with who we are. And because of others living truthfully, we might feel safe enough to drop the mask, to live in alignment with our truth. And we need community to manifest that kind of strength. I know that I do, for sure. Because living truthfully with others also means living with their response to our truth. And that is not always easy to bear. When eventually I had the courage to come out to my friends and family, I experienced some really painful responses: rejection, anger, loss, pain, being ignored. Community, not being alone, helped me hold that pain in a field of some acceptance and some kindness and some understanding. And when kindness isn't present, truth isn't present either. So I've brought this teaching in before, and I think it's really important. Comes from my mentor and friend, Irina Weissman, who taught and teaches, if it's not kind, it's not true. And people hear this, and when I first heard it, I was like, wait, what? That sounds really nice, Irina, but I don't think I get it. But when you really take a look at it, it begins to make sense. If there's not kindness in what's being said, externally or internally, if there isn't kindness in what we're communicating to ourselves and others, if caring isn't present, then there is aversion in some form. There's resistance, there's disapproval, there's shaming, there's fear, separation. And when there is aversion in the field, then our view is distorted. It's narrowed. It's not truly open. And so it can't really be accurate. It's not aligned with with the real. It's a filtered view. It's only when I admit everything and deny nothing about the truth of my experience, when I'm undefended, uncontracted around it, that's when I'm seeing it clearly, because I'm allowing all of it, even what's difficult, leaving nothing out. And when you think of the moments in your life when you've openly witnessed another in all of their complexity and truth, when you've related with an undefended heart, when you've been open in that way as far as you've been able to, what was the result? And then how about with ourselves, our internal speech and practice? The practice of truthfulness is not only our growing sensitivity to what we're saying or what our culture is saying, it's also what we're receiving, being discerning about the truth of external appraisals and opinions and our own. Is there kindness and caring in what is being said about me? And are those qualities present in what dominant culture is saying about me or about others or about the most marginalized and vulnerable among us right now? And if the quality of kindness is not present, then the view is incorrect. And there are limits to the power of words in describing truth. And the Buddha said, however we conceive of something, it is other than that. Concepts are not truth. Experience gets us closer to truth. So if you've never had an orange before, and I try and describe it to you, and I'm like, oh, it's got this, this skin that's orange and smooth, relatively smooth on one side, and then the other side is kind of spongy and off-white, and then there's like this sort of like ball thing, and it peels apart into sections, and the sections are like little crescents, like they're little baggies, and I don't know what they're made of, but they're a little rough on the outside, but then inside they're kind of smooth and soft and juicy and really good. It's like you wouldn't really know what an orange was. You have to taste it for yourself, you know? You might recognize an orange, but you wouldn't have the experience of orange until it was your own. And the Buddha advised against holding what he called fixed views, solidifying around concepts and stories, and then clinging to them. Rather, the invitation is to be open to reality unfolding all around us. And there's a beautiful teaching that he gave about this called safeguarding the truth, or it's about safeguarding the truth, or how we preserve the truth by not attaching to fixed views. And it's called the Chanki Sutta. And so in this sutta, a young Brahmin, Bharadvaja, who's a deep scholar of the Vedas, the sacred texts and hymns, asks the Buddha about how he holds the Vedas. And he says to the Buddha, um, the Brahmins say, only this is true, anything else is wrong. What does the Buddha say about this? And in his response, the Buddha teaches the importance of not clinging to fixed views, and he teaches Bharadvaja about safeguarding and how you safeguard. And he says, if a person has faith, Bharadvaja, they safeguard the truth when they say, my faith is like this. Yet they don't proclaim only this is true, everything else is wrong. In this way, they preserve the truth. And so the Buddha is giving a really practical approach, not being rigid and hasty to say this is true, but rather being aligned with the quality of truthfulness. I have faith. And then he continues from faith with the other ways we might take something to be true. So if a person approves of something, or we approve of the person saying it, if we're receiving it through tradition, or if I've reached this conclusion based on my reasoning. They can then say, I have faith, I approve of this, I've been taught this, it makes sense to me. But they don't say, this is truth and anything that doesn't agree with this is wrong. That's how we safeguard the truth. In other words, by giving space to what we believe to be true, and then allowing ourselves room to deepen our understanding through direct experience and observation. I may have faith, I may have been told, I may have read it, it may make sense to me, but can I not calcify and harden around it? So can I associate with truthfulness as an orientation, as a parami, to be deepened, a practice, an inquiry, something that is alive rather than static? Keeping that freshness of however we conceive of something, it is other than that. So there's the beautiful Zen teaching from Zen Master Jizo. Not knowing is most intimate. Not bringing in our preconceptions and our fixed views. Being as close to actual experience as we can. Inviting that beginner's mind. And in that way, we safeguard the truth by being open and receptive to what is. And that takes trust and vulnerability. Vulnerability to be open to the fact that truth is always revealing itself. And so our practice of truthfulness is staying present, awake, and connected and open. And really our whole practice of mindfulness, what we do on the cushion, it's about satya, truth being known, felt, experienced in a field of presence, in our paying attention, non-judgmentally, intentionally, here, now. If you ever want to check in with what's true, if everything is swirling around and you want to put your feet down for a moment in the truth, go to your body. It's like your body is having real experience in this moment. When we connect to our breath, when we connect to sensation, when we connect to sound, even when we connect to emotion and thought, we're having a real experience in that moment. The content of the thought may not be true, but the awareness of the thought, that is happening in this moment, that's true. So truthfulness is a practice, not a position. It's not infallibility. We will get it wrong sometimes, because of course we will. We incline toward, and in that inclining, we can vow to not intentionally mislead ourselves or others. We can associate, like we're doing here, with others who commit to clarity. And we can resist what is not true wherever we find it, internally, externally, culturally. And we can hold our overwhelm together. And maybe the mantra that I once lived by, admit nothing, deny everything, can be replaced by admit everything with kindness, deny nothing that is real. So let's just take a couple minutes before opening the floor just to allow the words to settle. Okay. So, big topic, one that we've had a relationship with our entire lives as a concept and a practice. And so would love to check in with the room and just find out any thoughts you have, how you relate to this topic, or anything else that's true for you that you want to say or express. So, okay. So let's offer this together. Going forth into this world so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful, and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you. Yay, thanks everyone. Thanks for being here.